Got home, cleaned up, and then the car wouldn't start.
Oh, no.
Gosh.
So I took the motorcycle.
Whoa.
And in case you ever noticed, Sarah had never been on a motorcycle. So we go to Blowing Rock to have a cocktail and dinner, I guess. I don't remember the dinner, but we ran out of gas. Now, it's one thing to run out of gas in a car. But it's another thing entirely to run out of gas in a motorcycle.
You didn't have another teaspoon of gas?
That's all we needed.
And you married?
Yes, we did.
And you married?
Well, hold on.
There's a lot thickens.
There's more.
There's more. I can't wait.
Well, after listening to the other, I thought I'd go ahead and get this out of the way before the question and answer started. We decided to get married on our first date.
Oh,
What?
So,
no gasoline?
and so that's kind of how it all started.
Oh my God. How much
And that-
later?
Huh? 41 years later. Well, we just celebrated our 40th anniversary.
But you didn't get married that night.
No, but they decided to.
Scooter, but they decided.
Yeah.
So anyway, we hit it off right away. We got married in 1979.
A year later.
A year later, yeah. We had some we had some tough times between then. Her mother passed away, and that was a very hard thing for Sarah. And but I had promised her mother, forgive me, that I'd take care of her, and I have, I think. We bought our first house in 1980. Which I know is not significant, but this is significant. Our mortgage payment was $417.55 a month.
And he remembers that.
All the money in the world.
It was all the money in the world, and I sat on the front porch of that house, and I thought, $417.55 for the next 30. And I called my dad and I said, Dad, I'm scared to death. If I'm short 1 month, do you think you could help me? At which point he made it clear that that was not an issue. So I did the $417.55 a month and never looked back. In 1981, I became certified by the North Carolina Board of CPAs, and I was working for a firm called J. Grisette at the time, which was later Deloitte Haskins and Sales, which was later Deloitte and Touche, which is now just Deloitte. And if you want to know what that translates to, in total billings worldwide, the #1 largest accounting firm in the world. So we started out with a good firm, and we stayed there for 6 years. Then in 1984, we moved to Gastonia, which Laura hated. But you know, the problem with most towns, as you all know, because we're older than most, a town is what you make of it.
Who's Laura?
Laura
Shields.
She was there.
Oh.
Laura Shields moved in her talk. She hated Gastonia.
Yeah.
Oh,
Gotcha, okay.
And I'm sorry,
But you changed your name, Sarah.
sorry about that.
Sarah.
But we built a house. It was a nice little house in a community called Heatherlock. Then in 1990, we had finally convinced Sarah's stepfather that he didn't need to be living out in the middle of a field in Greer, South Carolina. So we added an addition for Jack to live in. Unfortunately, he moved in on May 1st and died on May 26th.
Oh.
So but he was happy.
Yeah.
Because Jack's, the story of Jack and the addition is one that I really enjoy. Because you kind of have to, Jack was living in a house that was, like I said, out in the middle of nowhere. He did have his garden and he had all the things that he needed. But Jack was a rather big man, stood about 6'6". And when we finally convinced Jack to move in with us, and we were building this addition, I said, Jack, is there anything you want in this new addition? Because it's yours. It's for you to live in. All the things that are important to you will be in this addition. And he said, I can't think of a thing I want. And I said, fine. So we designed the addition. Well, no sooner did we have the design finished than Jack calls and said, you know, I was doing dishes at the kitchen sink today, and I realized that I have to bend over awfully far to do dishes. I said, okay, what if we raise the sink 36 inches? So that when you stand up, it's just like if I'm standing up at the sink, and he said, that's a great idea. He was happy. Didn't want anything else. The next day he called and he said, you know, I plugged in a lamp today. And I had to bend over awfully far to get that plug in. I said, not a problem. So if you go to we don't own the house anymore, but if you go to the addition, all the plugs are right up here. So that he can plug it in standing straight up. And then there was the music. And then there was just a menagerie of things, including, well, you know, when I take a shower, it hits me right here. So we put in shower heads above so that he could take a shower and not be inconvenienced. But the point of all that was, here was a guy that didn't know that he wanted anything, but before the addition was finished, everything he could think of. I was just sorry that he only lived with us for 26 days.
26 days.
26 days.
He
Moved
found
in.
out he had cancer.
Yeah, found out he had cancer and he died.
Oh.
So he didn't get to enjoy any of these little things that were important to him. As I was telling Carl, and I just drew a blank. Please don't hold it against me, Sandra. Right after Jack passed away, there was this little windstorm in Gastonia called Hugo. We had a backyard that was 2.5 acres of trees. We lost 150 trees during Hugo because the eye of the storm went right over us, and it was a right interesting time to have to deal with that. Shortly thereafter, I had an opportunity to sail from Rhode Island to Antigua. On a 114-foot catch. We left Newport, and about 6 days out we ran into a little hurricane. That's when I learned several things back then about sailing. Your weather reports show up every 6 hours, and that's it, nothing else. 6 hours. So where the hurricane was 6 hours ago is not necessarily where it is today. So we were in the hurricane, and I will be proud to admit I was the first one to lose my cookies because I was on watch that night, and which watch means I was at the helm, and the waves were crashing across the deck, and you're thinking to yourself, oh well, there's not a thing in the world we can do about this. because it was a 114-foot catch. We made 8 knots, and the hurricane was making a lot more than that. So, but apparently I lived.
That was Hugo?
No, it was Hurricane Nina.
Oh.
That was in 1991. Hugo was the year before. But I've had my share of hurricanes and I'm done with them. Then 1996, Sarah and I bought our house up here at Lake Lure. Many people thought I was insane because the house was a cabin. It was not intended to be lived in on a regular basis. Dr. Bush, who some of you may or may not know, he had it. He didn't understand that he wasn't supposed to date his staff. So he and his wife were at odds, so we got it at a pretty good price. Cash was king. But the first night we spent, pardon me, Sarah did not spend the night, but when we started to refurbish it, that was in January of '92, we had to give you an idea how poorly built or insulated the house was at the time. We had two gas heaters going. We had the stove and the oven going. We had a kerosene heater going, and the coffee on the counter froze.
That was the ice storm, wasn't it? That was the ice storm.
It sure was. So,
Yeah, you were here.
and so we, the house today, the walls, I mean, if you understand our values, the walls are R34. I've got 31 inches of insulation in the attic, and real windows.
Hey.
So it does not, until the price of propane went up and our one of those little gas heaters quit, our annual heating bill was $50. So
Wow.
now that it's up to 150 for the year. But it's a nice little house. But in that thought, you got to kind of, and I don't say this to be boastful, but our house in Gastonia was 5,400 square feet.
Yeah.
Our lake house is 625 square feet. We downsized. But that has its own story in that if you have children and you don't sell the big house, they come back and they bring more with them. Several times, but we needed the big house to take care of the family. In 1999, I felt it was important for Sarah and I to go to our church where we started our life together and redo our wedding vows. And if anybody wants to see the pictures of the expressions of her face, they're back there on the table.
They're in that album.
Yeah, they're in the album. We were blessed to have 4 grandchildren. My oldest grandson, Reed, and my youngest grandson, Gray, are both Eagle Scouts, which I'm very proud of. Reed, Shay, and Macy have given a year of their life to AmeriCorps. And if you don't know what AmeriCorps is, don't be ashamed or left alone. AmeriCorps is a vision of George Bush, Sr., that said, if we've got the Peace Corps, and we're doing good in all parts of the world, why don't we have something in the United States? So AmeriCorps is an opportunity for children 18 to 24 to give a year of service to our own country. And Reed, Shea, and Macy have all done it. Macy is currently in AmeriCorps, and I think she's got 6 months left. So we're proud of them. Let's see.
In case you don't know, one of our renewal of vows was a surprise.
Oh yeah, I didn't tell
He
her.
didn't tell me. He did it all
We just showed up.
and invited the people that was at our first wedding and had the song sung at our first wedding.
It was sweet, and it was expensive.
It was
But it
worth
was
it.
worth it.
Yeah.
Thank you. But we're, I got some other things on here, but nobody will remember them if I'm dead and gone, so.
But you're not.
But I'm still not, you know, I mean, what the hell? I've
What the
talked-
heck?
Yeah, right.
I've talked for my 15 minutes of
You've done
fame.
good.